Hello, so today we're going to be comparing sexual and asexual reproduction. Now please make sure your phones are off, you haven't got the TV on, or you're not playing any games to distract you, and you've got a pen and paper or your booklet ready to take notes and answer the questions. At times you may see this yellow banner appearing on the screen. At that point I would like you to pause the video to complete your tasks. If you're ready, we will begin. So we're first going to have a look at some advantages and disadvantages of asexual and sexual reproduction. So an advantage of asexual reproduction is that it only requires one parent. Notice that I put parent in inverted commas because it's not exactly the same as a parent how we think of it with mothers and fathers. It is just one organism that then produces identical offspring. And asexual reproduction is quicker than sexual reproduction. There's no time wasted trying to find a mate or dispersing the gametes, so the sex cells. It's also more time, so it's more time efficient. It's also more energy efficient as well. There's not that energy wasted doing all of that. And we can produce lots of identical clones. And this can be an advantage or a disadvantage. It's an advantage if the conditions are favourable. However, if the conditions are not favourable or a disease passes through, then actually all of the offspring and all of the organisms that are clones, identical, will be affected the same way. Another advantage of asexual reproduction is that we can speed it up. And we can do this to produce lots of clones very, very quickly, and this can enable us to produce large amounts of food in a short time. We're now going to have a look at reproduction in fungi. So these are things such as mushrooms and spores and mould are all types of fungi. Now they can reproduce asexually and sexually. They're able to do both. And when we think about a fungus, the part we can see on it is called the fruiting body. And the fruiting body contains spores which are then dispersed to become new fungi. Those spores are made by mitosis. This is a form of asexual reproduction. All of them will then be identical. Now, fungi, when we actually look at them closer, are made up of hyphae, which are tiny little effectively tubes that all stretch out and intertwine together until they become visible. These all stretch out and are drawn towards other hyphae. If you've ever left any food inside it starts to go a bit mouldy, it's got that white fuzz on it, that is hyphae forming. Now you might be thinking, Mr. Lewis has missed out on the E on that last hypha. I've not. So hyphae with an E on the end is the plural. Hypha is a singular. Now hyphae are drawn towards other hypha. They can sense them somehow. And this enables fungi to all connect up. It's incredibly clever. We're not entirely sure exactly how it works yet. There's an awful lot going on with fungi that we don't completely understand, but it is very, very amazing. Now, in unfavourable conditions, so if the environment does not suit the fungi, those hyphae will meet up. They will join, they will fuse together. And that new resulting hypha now has two sets of chromosomes, one from each of the fungi. It then divides by meiosis to form spores that now have the correct number of chromosomes, and that can lead to fungi that could potentially be better suited to the conditions. It's not guaranteed, but they could potentially be suited to the conditions through that variation that's being introduced. We're now going to have a look at reproduction in plants. Apologies that this hasn't all appeared one by one, but we'll work through it. So plants can reproduce sexually and asexually. On this first point up here. Now, when we look at them reproducing sexually, we know that the reproductive organs of plants are found in the flowers. They've got the stamen, the stigma, and all those things up there that allow them to reproduce sexually. Now for sexual reproduction, now to this third point, the pollen, which is the male gamete, needs to go from one plant to the egg cell of another plant to fertilize it. And it can be carried through various different ways. It can either be carried through the wind, so it can be blown there. It can be carried by animals such as bees and other insects that will feed on one plant and get the nectar and then go to another plant and pass it on, and the pollen sticks to them. It can also be carried by water. Sometimes the pollen will fall into the water and be carried to another plant, or it can be done by explosions. So the plant will effectively cause an explosion to happen and dispersing the pollen out, hoping that it will meet an egg cell. Now, plants can also reproduce asexually, by mitosis. I'm on this point here now. This is very, very useful if the flowers have been destroyed, either because of frost, it's very, very cold, so there aren't any flowers, or they've been eaten. Plants that do this include strawberry plants. They get runners coming out that grow into new strawberry plants, or daffodil bulbs as well are also produced by mitosis. And those resulting plants are identical to the parent plant. So this is useful if the conditions are favourable, or they've not got the flowers to reproduce sexually, or the conditions aren't favourable to reproduce sexually. If they need to save energy, for example, in the winter months when it's cold and there's no flowers. We're finally going to look at malarial parasites. So malarial parasites are a little bit different. They can still reproduce sexually and asexually, but they'll do it differently at different times in their life cycle. So if a malarial parasite is in a human, either in the liver or in the red blood cells, it will reproduce asexually. That's by mitosis. Now, if that person is bitten by a female mosquito, note how it is the female mosquitoes. The male mosquitoes don't carry the malarial parasite. They don't do the same as the female ones. The female ones that pass on malaria. So the female mosquito will bite and have their drink of blood. There'll then be a drop in temperature going from the human, where our body temperature is about 37 degrees, into a mosquito. It's going to be a lot lower. It's going to be much closer to the ambient temperature. There'll be a drop in temperature, and that drop in temperature causes the parasites to start reproducing sexually. So the parasite will divide by meiosis due to that drop in temperature and combine with other malarial parasite cells that are also divided by meiosis to reproduce sexually. And we do get then some variation into the malarial parasites. The problem is there's not that much variation because they are all fairly similar, so we only get a small amount of variation. But over time, the more people that are bitten and the more it spreads, the bigger variation we do get with it. We're now going to have a go at answering some questions, so please pause the video and answer these questions. When you are ready, you can press play. You can now mark your answers. We're now going to move on to the next questions. Please pause the video to answer the questions. You can now mark your answers. We're now going to move on to the next set of questions. Please pause the video and answer the questions. You can now mark your answers. Thank you very much for watching. I hope it's been informative. If you do have any questions, please do get in touch with me. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and have a great day. Take care. Bye bye.